Okay, so today we're going to talk about sum and difference of rational expressions, or adding and subtracting rational expressions. And this is again closely related to adding and subtracting fractions, which is something that we should be familiar with. And that's what we're going to sort of start on. If I have two fractions of a similar denominator, as in like the same denominator, and I want to add these two fractions to each other, this is a pretty easy or straightforward procedure. I just write it as one fraction, and all I need to do is to add the two numerators, 2 plus 5. So in other words, if I generalize this idea, if I have a over b plus c over b, I can do this addition of the fractions as a fraction over b of a plus c. And if it is a subtraction, all I need to do is just change that to subtraction. So there isn't like the subtraction and addition are basically very closely related to each other. Now, another type of addition of fractions is when we have different denominators or unlike denominators. For doing unlike denominators, I need to make a common denominator. So what I will do, I will find an LCD, lowest common denominator, right? Or just the common denominator. So what I will do, I'm going to multiply the denominator of the first fraction with the denominator of the second fraction, and vice versa, right?
The numerator, so
if I multiply a denominator by a number, I need to multiply the numerator by the same thing.
So 3 times 4.
So now I have changed these two fractions into 10 over 15 plus 9 over 15, right? Now again, they become like denominators, and it is an easy addition of these two fractions. It will be over 15, 10, and 9, 19 would be the numerator of these two fractions. So for unlike denominators, we multiply the two denominators. That would be our lowest common denominator, or the common denominator, right? We find the common denominator, and then a times d plus b times c is going to be the numerator of the result of this addition.
Quotient of two fractions,
we're going to sort of use the same idea for adding and subtracting rational expressions.
Right?
So I have these two rational expressions, x squared plus 4 over x plus 2x plus 3 over x. These have the same denominator, so I'm going to use that first rule. I'm going to use the same fraction, or I'm going to use one fraction with the same denominator. And all I'm going to do is to add the two numerators. X squared plus 4 plus 2x plus 3. Once I've done that, I'm going to simplify it. This becomes x squared plus 2x plus 7, and that's done. I have a second set of rational expressions with the same denominator. Again, I'm going to write them with the same denominator.
Over x minus 3,
and go 3x minus 5.
Over x plus 1.
This is a subtraction. I'm going to use brackets to minimize mistakes.
We factor everything.
So it becomes 3x minus 5 minus 2x minus 3 over 2x.
Second fraction, I can't
simplify the numerators. I get x minus 8 over 2x, and that's finished.
State the non-permissibles. X minus 3.
But for unlike denominators, we need a set of procedures. For the two same denominator fractions that I had, of course, I have to state the non-permissible values of the variables. In both of these cases, x cannot be equal to 0, because if x is equal to 0, the denominator is going to be 0, and if the denominator is 0, then both fractions are going to be undefined. Same thing with the second set of rational expressions. X cannot be equal to 0, otherwise the two fractions are going to be undefined. So, what we're going to do for unlike denominators, we have a set of rules, or a set of steps that we're going to follow. Step 1, we're going to factor each denominator. As you see, the focus is on the denominator here. Step 2, state
So,
the
now I'm
non-permissible
going to
values.
use,
Again,
the
what
same
makes the
rules
denominator
for
equal to 0.
simplifying,
Step 3,
rational
find
expressions, and we're
the
gonna do some
LCD, the lowest
examples.
common denominator. How do we
If
find
I
the lowest
have,
common denominator for algebraic
this
expressions?
sort of
We
like, fraction
list
4x squared
each
over
factor of the
3xy, and I
denominators
multiply it
with
by
the
y
highest
squared
power.
over 8x.
And that would be our
So these are
lowest common
already in
denominator.
factored form. So all I'm
Step
going to
4,
do, I'm going to
rewrite
them
each
as
rational
one fraction. I'm
expression
gonna go
with the
4x
LCD.
squared times y
I'm
squared.
going to show you guys all of
and
this,
then
all of these steps in
3xy
examples.
times 8x.
As step 5, add or
To make
subtract the
life easier for
numerators, just
myself,
like we
I'm
did
going to group
with the
these
previous
things,
examples.
like
And then
a
at
little
the
bit
end, once everything is
easier
done,
for
simplify
myself.
if it is
I'm gonna
possible.
go,
Yeah?
put all the numeric stuff
Okay.
at the beginning. So I have
So
4
we're going to
on
look
top.
at
That's the only numeric part of the,
we're going to look at these
the
two
numerator.
fractions.
In the
First of
denominator,
all,
I have 3 times 8.
both fractions are in
Then I'm gonna
factored
put
form,
the
so I don't
x
need to factor
terms
anything, right?
next.
So step
I
1
have
is
x
done,
squared,
right?
and on
But
top
I
I'm
can
gonna put it
state
there.
the
At the bottom I
non-permissibles.
have x.
Non-permissible
and I have
values
another x.
of
In the numerator, I have
like
y
of
squared.
the
I have
variables,
y terms.
x cannot be equal to
put
0
next,
and y
and
cannot be
I'm
equal
gonna
to 0.
have
So
y
non-permissibles
in the
are
denominator.
stated, right? I need to
So
find
this
the
way, it's
LCD,
grouped
lowest
properly,
common
and I
denominator.
don't
What
have
number
to,
would
sort of
divide
look
into
for it
15
or
and
just in
6?
case sort of
Both
I,
in 15
I
and
misplace
6.
it, I don't forget to sort of
30
count it.
is the smallest
Okay,
number that
now I
divides into
have,
both of those. So the
4
numeric
divided by
LCD
3
we can
times
find
8.
quickly,
Between
right?
4 and 8,
You go, okay,
can cancel
I
4 on
list
top,
all the factors of the
and I have 3
denominators,
times
right?
2 at
I
the
have
bottom.
x, right?
between x squared
And I have
these two x's
y,
that are multiplied at the
right?
bottom.
I
can
list
cancel
all the
them out.
factors
So
with the
all the
highest
x's
degree. The
disappear.
highest degree of x
Then I
is
have y squared divided
2,
by y.
right?
The
The
y
highest
at the
degree
bottom
of
cancels
y
that
is
squared
just 1. We
term
just
on
leave it
top,
as it
so I
is,
get y
right? So that's
over
going to be our
6
LCD.
as the simplified
Then I go, okay,
form.
I have 1 over 6xy,
I'm going to assume
right?
that all the denominators
What would I
are
multiply the
non-zero,
6xy
right? So I
by
don't have to state the
to achieve
non-permissibles. I think we,
30x squared y, which
sort
is
of
our LCD?
established that we have to
I need to multiply it by what?
to state the non-permissible. So I'm just going
5x.
to leave that.
If
I'm
I
gonna
multiply the
do
bottom of a
multiplication and
fraction by
simplification
something,
with
what do
these
I need to
examples,
multiply
so
the
you
top
guys,
by?
Just go ahead and do that.
Same thing.
So,
I multiplied
now I
the
have
numerator
multiplication
by
of two
5x as
fractions
well.
with
Minus
more than
I
just
have
like,
15x squared as the denominator of
I
the
have
second
a
fraction.
squared minus a
What
minus
would I have to
12
multiply it
divided
by
a
to make
squared
it into
minus
30x
9
squared y?
multiplied by the second fraction a squared
2y,
minus 4a
and
plus 3
the numerator
over a
is
squared
2.
minus
What would I
4a,
multiply it by to make
and
it
I need
into
to,
the same thing? I have to
simplify
multiply
this.
it by
So,
2y as well.
our first
So
step
now
is to factor
I'm going to
everything.
rewrite both fractions. The numerator
So
of the
that's what we're
first one
gonna do.
becomes
Factor
5x because it's
everything
5x times 1. The denominator is going to be that LCD.
Completely.
30x squared y
So
minus
if you have everything
2y
in a
times 2
factored
is
form,
4y
things will
over
look a lot
30
easier. So suppose
x
I have
squared
12
y.
divided by 16. Right away, I
pause
may
it.
be able to see it, but
So
if they are
now
big numbers,
I have
can't.
two
but if I have
fractions
it in
with
factored form,
common
2 times
denominator.
2 times
So
3
what I can do, I can
divided by
combine
2
these two
times
fractions.
2
I have
times
30x
2 times
squared y.
2. If I have it this way,
And
I
then
can see that, you know,
5x
those,
is the numerator
small
of the
factors
first
can,
fraction.
can quickly
I have a
simplify
negative here. I'm
and,
going to put that
and
negative
cancel
between
out.
these two, right?
So that's
So
what I'm
minus
going to do. I'm
4y,
going to
and that
factor
is
the
as
first
simplified
one.
as I can get it.
It gives
right?
me a
Good.
minus.
Okay? We're going to do the same thing with this one. I'm going to
4
give you guys a little bit
a
of time to
plus
work on
3
that and see if you can get it yourself.
over
Go for it.
And the
Okay,
denominator of
so
the first fraction is a difference of
This
squares.
is
I'm gonna,
already in
rate it
factored
as a
form, so
minus
I'm just going to
3
state the non-permissibles.
times
A
a
cannot be
plus
equal to
3
0, and B cannot be equal to 0.
multiplied by the numerator of
The
the second
LCD
fraction. I'm gonna
of
rate
this
it
thing
as a
Or these two fractions,
plus
would
what?
a number that divides
Or a
into 9
minus
and 2 is 18.
1 times
And then I have
a
a
minus
to the
3.
highest power, which is
Yeah.
a squared, and b
And
to
the
the highest
denominator, I
power, which
can,
would
I
be
can
b
take
squared. That would be
a
the
as a
LCD of these
factor.
two fractions.
I get a
Now,
squared.
I'm
I
going
get
to
a
write it
minus 4.
as
A minus 4.
fractions out of 18,
Now, I'm
a squared,
multiplying-
b
I'm
squared,
multiplying these
cut
two
it
fractions
2a
to each other,
squared,
so I
b,
have to multiply the
make it into
numerators,
18
and I
a
have to
squared, b
multiply the
squared was
denominators,
by
so
multiplying it
So
by
instead of rewriting all of this, I'm going to
9b. So I
extend this
multiplied the
fraction
top
line
by 9b.
and just say, okay, the numerators are multiplying and the denominators.
Same idea for the
Now
second
I'm going to
fraction.
look
The
for
denominator is going to
common
be 18a
factors
squared
in
b
the
squared.
numerator and the
Right?
denominator. So
And then
look
how
for
did
common
9ab squared go into, how did it become 18a squared b squared?
So common
It was by
factors
multiplying
of
it by 2a.
top and bottom.
So I multiplied the top by 2a, right?
So if I'm looking for
Now I
numerators,
have same denominator. I'm going, look, I
factors
can combine the two
of,
fractions,
numerator and
18a
denominator
squared
are the same.
b squared.
The first thing
The
that
numerators,
that
I'm going
sort
to
of comes
expand this
to
is going to
our
be
attention
18
is
ab
a minus 4 is
plus
common between the
9b,
numerator and the denominator.
and then minus,
a plus 3
I'm going to
is common.
expand this
I
behind
cancel
this
them out.
minus sign and then combine it, and then apply
And
that
a
minus
minus
sign to
3
it later, so I
is
minimize the
And I'm going to cancel
the mistakes.
So
So
I'm
2a
gonna
times b
rewrite
is
this
2ab,
in
and
the
2a times
simplified
negative
form.
6 is
What's left over
negative
in
3
the
is
numerator
negative
is a minus
6a.
1. And what's left over in the denominator is
18ab plus
So this is
9b
the most
minus
simplified form of
2ab.
this
That minus
multiplication of
applies
this,
to both of these in
these
the
two rational expressions.
in the
Now we have
brackets.
a u-do. I'd
plus
like you guys
6a
to give this a shot, and we'll come back in
over
a couple minutes
18a
and
squared
do this
b
together.
squared.
Go for it.
And if we combine the like terms
Okay,
in the
so let's do
numerator, I
this
have
one quickly
18ab
together. I'm going to
or
factor everything.
18ab minus
I'm going
2ab.
to
I
factor
end
the
up with
numerator of the first one.
16ab
And the numerator of the first one, it'll
plus
be x plus
9b
4
minus
and x plus
6a
1.
over
I'm going to factor the
18
denominator.
a
I'm going to
squared
take out the GCF first.
b
2
squared.
is the greatest common factor. I'm going to take that out. This becomes x
Sorry,
squared
plus
minus
6a.
4x
Good. Okay.
plus 4. So this
Thank
is
you.
an x minus
Now we're going to
2
move on
squared.
to
Times.
slightly more complicated questions.
I'm
Not
gonna take
necessarily
the
complicated,
GCF
but
of
you know,
the
maybe
numerator.
you know,
This
a
is
little bit more
4
factoring
times
involved.
x minus 2.
So our step
The,
one was
the
to
denominator
factor
of the second
everything,
one is
right?
x
Factor all
minus
the
1
denominators. So I'm
times
going
x
to
plus
factor
1.
all the denominators.
Factor.
Y squared minus
Now I'm
20
going
is the
to
numerator
extend
of the
this
first one.
fraction
The first one
line,
in
and
the
I'm gonna
denominator is
make it
y
a
squared
multiplication
minus
of the
4. It looks like a
numerators
difference of
and
squares, so I
multiplication
get
of the denominators.
y
Now I'm
minus
going to
2
look
times
to cancel
y plus
what's
2
common between the numerator and the
plus
denominator. X
y
plus
minus
1
2 over
is common
y
between the
plus 2 is
numerator and
already
the
in
denominator.
factored
Cancel
form. I
them out.
don't need to do anything.
X
to
minus
it.
2
Okay,
is
this is a good
common.
time to
I'm gonna
state
cancel
the
it out.
the
And I
non-permissibles.
think that's
So look
about
at
it.
non-permissible
X4 and the
values.
2.
Y cannot be
This
equal
is
to
1,
2,
and that would be
and
a
y cannot
So
be
this
equal to
becomes
negative 2.
X plus 4.
So those are the
Two of
non-permissibles.
them.
To find out what the LCD
Over
is,
X
I list
minus
all the
2
factors, y minus
times
2,
X minus 1.
right, and y plus 2.
And that will be
I choose the highest
the
degree one.
simplified
The
If you
factors
were to
all
state
have
the
degree 1, so I
non-permissibles,
don't
as
need
Joshua
to
was
do
saying,
anything.
You look at the factor
So
form.
this is going to be the
state
LCD.
that it
The
is in
first
most
one, the
factored
first
form,
fraction
and then you look at
already
all the
has a
denominators,
denominator
right? And
that
you
is
look
the
at,
same as the
you look to
LCD,
see
so
what
I
makes
just
the
rewrite it.
denominator equal to 0, and those would be the non-permissibles. Now, we're going to look at dividing
The second
rational
fraction, the
expressions,
denominator is
right?
y plus 2.
So suppose I have
To make it
the
into the
division
LCD,
of
I need
x
to
squared
multiply it by
minus
y
4
minus 2.
over x squared minus
To
4x.
be able to do that, I have to
by
multiply the
x
numerator
squared
by y
plus
minus
x
2.
minus 6 over x squared plus x minus
So
20.
it becomes
So
y squared
I'm going to
minus
factor
20
everything
over
first.
y minus
I'm going
2
to factor everything first. So this would
times
be x minus
y
2,
plus
x
2
plus 2
plus
over
y
I'm
minus
gonna
2
take
squared
the greatest common factor of the denominator, which is x, out.
over
I'm left with x
y minus
4.
2 times y plus 2.
I'm going to make this a multiply.
Now they have the same
I'm going to
denominator, so I can
flip
combine the
second
two
fraction.
fractions. Y minus 2 times
X squared
y plus 2.
x
Now I focus
minus
on
20.
the
Just like
numerator,
we
and what I
with,
need to do to simplify the
fractions.
numerator, I get y squared minus
Denominator
20.
becomes x squared
plus
x minus 6.
I have a square
So,
of a binomial, so it
The
becomes
first
y
one
squared
was
minus
x
4y
2 times
plus
x
4.
plus 2 over.
And
x times
if you
x
simplify
minus
this,
4.
then I get 2y
Now
squared
the second one becomes
minus
x
4y
minus
and minus
x
20 minus
plus
16
5
minus
in the
16
factored form
over
x
y squared minus
minus
4 if I combine these two in the denominator.
2
Or we can just
times
leave it
x
in
plus
factored
3.
form. Okay.
Now I'm going to look at
Next one that we're going to do,
I'm going to look
we're going to look at the
extending
denominator. So the denominator of these two fractions have similar sort of terms in them, but something different about them, right? You want to see what's different about them. I'm going to rewrite this as 5 over m minus 3 plus 8 over, if I factor out a negative in the two terms in the second denominator, I can rewrite it as minus m minus 3.
This is x
right?
plus 2
So now we're
x
looking at
plus
the same
5
factors.
over
So I can rewrite the
x
two
times
as 5 over m minus 3, and this
and that's,
negative
the most
can become the sign for the fraction.
simplified form.
So 8 over m minus 3. So it becomes 5 over m
Okay.
minus 3 minus 8 over
And
m minus
we're gonna
3.
do
Now this
one
is a
more
very
division.
easy and straightforward
I'd like
subtraction
you guys to try it
because they
first.
have the same
Go for it.
denominator. I have 5
Okay,
minus
so we're going
8
to factor
in
the
the
numerator
numerator,
of
so
this
I get
one.
negative
A
3
times
over
c is
m
negative 8.
minus
I'm
3.
looking at factors of negative 8 that add up to negative 7.
Okay,
So I'm
and
looking
the non-permissible value,
at 2n squared.
m cannot be equal to
Factors of
3.
negative 8 that add up to negative 7 are minus 8
Now we're going to look
and
at
plus 1.
this last example for today. I have
I'm
x
gonna do
plus
the same
2
thing
over
for the
x
bottom.
squared
Factors of
plus x
negative
minus 2
36 that add
plus
up
3
to
over x
negative
squared
5
minus 1.
are
So we want to factor everything
negative
to start.
9 and positive
Go
4.
x plus 2
So
is the numerator
6n
here.
squared
I'm going to
minus
factor
9n
factor everything. I have
plus 4n.
two factors. It's a
minus
trinomial. I
6.
can factor it. I can
make this a
rate this as
multiply.
x plus
You're gonna
2
flip the
times
second
x minus
fraction.
1
12
plus
n plus
3 over
8.
x minus 1
Do the
times
same thing.
x plus 1.
Factors of 4 that add up
Right.
to 4.
This is a good time to rate the non-permissible
Because of
values.
4n
Non-permissible
squared
values. I go, okay, x cannot be
plus
equal to
2n
negative 2.
plus
X cannot be
2n
equal to negative
plus
1.
1.
And
Okay.
x cannot be
Now I'm
equal
going to
to,
group them together. So
Positive
the first
1
group
yeah, positive 1.
gives me
Because if we
a
do,
common,
then like one of the factors
I
of the
take
denominator
GCF of
becomes
the
0,
first group,
and at least
2n
one of the
squared.
fractions is going to be undefined.
So grouping
Okay,
the first two,
now that we've
I
stated the
take
non-permissibles, we can
the
simplify
GCF.
things if we can. So
2n
x plus
would
2
be
is a
n
common
minus
factor
4
between the numerator and
plus
denominator of the first
n
fraction.
minus
We can
4
cancel it out. So the
over-
first fraction
I do the
becomes 1
same thing
over
for the
x minus
denominator. I
1.
have
The second
3n
fraction
as the
becomes
GCF.
3
I get
over x minus 1
2n
times
minus
x plus
3
1.
plus
I need an
2 as a
LCD.
common factor of the last two
The
in
LCD for
denominator.
these
I get
two can
2
be,
as a common factor. I get
we
3n
list the factors
minus
x minus 1 and
2n
x plus
minus
1.
3.
Okay, what is the highest degree of x minus 1? 1. Okay, we okay. What is the highest
multiplied
degree of
by,
x plus
I'm
1?
gonna take
And that's 1, and we okay for
4
that
as
one
a
too.
common factor in the numerator. Here I get
The second
3n
fraction already
plus
has
2.
the LCD as the
First two
denominator.
terms,
The
I'm
first
gonna take out
fraction
the
we need to
GCF,
multiply the
is
denominator by
2n,
x plus 1 to make it into LCD.
And I get
If you do that for the
2n
denominator,
plus
we need to do
1
the same for the
plus
numerator. We multiply by
2n
x plus 1.
grouped at
So
end
the
of
first
that.
fraction becomes x
Now I'm
plus
gonna write
1
them in as product
over
of factors.
x plus 1
So
times
I'll
x
get
minus
n
1.
minus 4 as
Second
the common
fraction
factor
stays the same.
taken out.
X minus 1
2n
times
plus 1
x
is
plus
the other
1.
factor.
Now they have the same
denominator is
denominator.
going to
I
be
can
2n minus 3
combine the two fractions
times 3n plus 2
and add the two numerators.
multiplied by
So now I get x plus 4 in the numerator,
4
and the denominator
times
is going to
3n
be
plus 2 is
x
in the
plus 1 times
numerator.
x minus 1.
2n
And that's the
plus
simplest
1
form.
is the common factor.
Okay, so you
and
guys
2n
have
plus
some
1 is the other
assignments
factor.
for this
Then I'm gonna
section,
look for
I definitely
common
encourage you to do the
common
assignments
factors of the
fully
numerator and the denominator to cancel
to be able
out.
to do well on the
Okay.
test which is
I
coming up
have
on Monday.
2n plus 1
And make sure that you're getting to the sort of
occurring
higher
both
level
in the
questions that we
numerator
have.
and the denominator. I
Alrighty.
can cancel them out. 3n plus 2 can be canceled from the top and the bottom. Is there anything else? I think I'm done. And you go, okay, 4 times n minus 4 over 2n minus 3 times 2n plus 1 would be the most simplified form of this. So you guys have some homework to do for this section, which is the 2.2. Make sure that you do some of the high level questions, the ones at the end. If you start at E and you think it's a little bit too much, go back and start doing start by doing some of the easier ones, which are A, B, C, D, some of those. So once you warmed up, then you can do you can do more of the high level ones. Alrighty. So that's for today's lesson.